The sun had barely risen above the hills surrounding Rome when 16-year-old Marcus pushed his way through the growing crowd. Every street leading toward the city center seemed packed with people. Vendors sold bread from baskets, children ran ahead of their parents, veterans wearing faded military decorations spoke excitedly about what they were about to see. Today was not a market day. Today was a triumph. Word had spread for weeks that a victorious Roman general was returning from a successful campaign in Gaul. The Senate had granted him the highest honor Rome could bestow upon a military commander, the right to celebrate a triumph through the streets of the city. Marcus had never seen one before. His father had. Get a good place, his father had told him before dawn. You'll remember this for the rest of your life. As Marcus squeezed into a spot along the route, he realized his father had been right. The atmosphere felt less like a political event and more like a festival. Musicians played flutes and horns, bakers sold loaves of fresh bread, street performers entertained children while they waited. The entire city seemed united by excitement. Few in the crowd discussed taxes. Few talked about grain shortages in certain districts. No one seemed interested in the latest arguments among senators. For one day, Rome's problems had been replaced by anticipation. A distant cheer erupted from the far end of the avenue. A triumph had begun. The first participants to appear were musicians. Their instruments echoed between the stone buildings as the crowd applauded. Behind them came priests carrying sacred objects and incense. The smell drifted through the warm morning air. Then came wagons piled high with treasure. Gold, silver, jewels, weapons captured from defeated armies. The crowd gasped. Many Romans would never possess even a fraction of the wealth displayed before them. Yet, in seeing it pass through the streets, it made them feel connected to Rome's success. A man beside Marcus pointed toward one of the wagons. That came from Gaul, he said proudly. Marcus nodded, even though he had never traveled farther than a few miles outside Rome. It did not matter. The victory felt like his own. More wagons followed, massive shields decorated with symbols of conquered tribes, captured standards, beautiful artwork taken from enemy settlements. Each display served a purpose. The treasure demonstrated that Rome was growing richer. The weapons demonstrated that Rome was growing stronger. The crowd roared its approval. Then came the prisoners. Chains rattled as captured enemy leaders marched under heavy guard. Some stared defiantly at the crowd. Others looked defeated. Children pointed. Adults whispered. Many spectators would never see a foreign enemy in person except during events like this. The prisoners transformed a distant military campaign into a living story. Rome's enemies were no longer abstract threats discussed by politicians. They were visible proof of Roman victory. Marcus watched as people laughed, cheered, and celebrated. No one spoke about the suffering that war had caused. No one discussed the villages that had been burned or the lives that had been lost. That was not the purpose of the triumph. The purpose was spectacle. The purpose was pride. The purpose was to remind everyone that Rome was powerful. Finally, the victorious general appeared. The crowd exploded. Thousands of voices shouted at once. Flowers flew through the air. The general rode in an elaborate chariot pulled by white horses. He wore a purple robe embroidered with gold and a laurel wreath upon his head. To the people watching, he seemed almost godlike. Marcus found himself cheering with everyone else. He barely knew the details of the campaign. He had never met a soldier who fought in it. Yet, he felt a surge of excitement and pride. This was exactly why triumphs existed. Military victories became public entertainment. War became theater. Conquest became a celebration. The crowd followed the procession toward the great public spaces of Rome, where feasts and games would continue throughout the day. By afternoon, the city felt transformed. Large tables had been arranged in public areas, food was distributed, bread, fruit, wine, roasted meats. Citizens who struggled to afford regular meals found themselves eating well. Children laughed, families gathered, friends toasted Rome's victory. The military campaign had taken place hundreds of miles away, but its rewards were now being shared with the people. This connection between conquest and public benefits was not accidental. Roman leaders understood something important. Victories abroad could strengthen support at home. While people associated military success with prosperity, they became more likely to support both the war and the leaders responsible for it. As evening approached, the celebrations shifted toward entertainment. Crowds poured into the city's venues. Athletic competitions began. Musicians performed. Actors staged plays. The day's events had become a complete package of excitement and reward. Military glory, food, entertainment. Together they formed a powerful political tool. Many years later, the Roman poet Juvenal would criticize his system with the phrase, bread and circuses. He argued that Roman citizens had become too easily satisfied by free food and public spectacle. Whether Juvenal was entirely fair remains a matter of debate, but he recognized an important reality. The Roman government understood the value of keeping people emotionally engaged. Military victories played a major role in that effort. A successful campaign created opportunities for celebrations, triumphs, public feasts, and games. The event strengthened loyalty to Rome and to its leaders. For ordinary citizens, military accomplishments often felt personal. A farmer who never left Italy could still celebrate the conquest of distant lands. A merchant who never carried a sword could still feel pride in Roman victory. A child like Marcus could watch a triumph and believe he was witnessing the greatness of his civilization. That emotional connection mattered. In a city containing hundreds of thousands of people from different backgrounds, shared experiences helped create unity. Triumphs turned military success into a communal event. Everyone participated, everyone celebrated, everyone became part of the story. As darkness settled over Rome, torches illuminated the streets. Marcus sat beside his father, eating bread from the day's festivities. The city still buzzed with excitement. People still talked about the treasure, they talked about the prisoners, they talked about the victorious general. No one seemed interested in political disagreements. No one seemed interested in economic challenges. For a brief moment, the concerns of daily life had been replaced by a larger narrative. Rome had won. Rome was strong. Rome was prosperous. And that feeling was worth more to many leaders than the victory itself. Military accomplishments served practical purposes. They expanded territory, secured resources, and protected borders. But they also served another purpose. They created stories. Stories that could be displayed in triumphs. Stories that could fill arenas and public squares. Stories that could inspire pride and loyalty. Stories that could distract attention from problems at home. That is why military accomplishments became such an important part of the Roman system of bread and circuses. The victories provided the raw material. The triumphs provided the spectacle. The feasts provided the reward. Together, they formed a cycle that helped sustain public support for generations. Long after the cheering stopped and the treasure was stored away, the memory remained. Marcus would remember that day for the rest of his life. Years later, he would tell his own children about the triumph he witnessed as a boy. He would describe the music, the treasure, the prisoners, and the general in the golden chariot. And like countless Romans before him, he would remember not the hardships of war, but the excitement of victory. That was the true power of military accomplishment within the system of bread and circuses. It transformed distant conflicts into unforgettable public experiences, turning war into entertainment and political success into popular support. Through spectacle, celebration, and shared emotion, Rome converted military victories into one of the most effective tools of public influence the ancient world has ever seen.